administrator at the Excelsior Community College was wounded in a shooting at the compound in Kingston earlier today. Reports coming into our news center are that at approximately 3:30 p.m., a lone gunman entered the administrative building at the campus and opened gunfire, hitting the woman. She was rushed to the hospital, where she is said to be in stable condition. The armed assailant escaped by scaling the fence of the school's compound. Classes had to be suspended and students were sent home for the remainder of the day. We will bring you more on this story in subsequent newscasts. In other news tonight, Maroon Chief Richard Currie is declaring that under his leadership, the Maroon community remains a law-abiding territory. His declaration comes following allegations that he has illegally armed men associated with him. The men are accused of meting out violence upon residents of the territory. Chief Currie strongly denies the allegations. Following allegations that he has been leading the people of the Maroon territory through a system of violence and force, Currie says he's no Don.
Now, let me be clear. The wounds inflicted on Chico were not inflicted by any member of my security team. Let it also be known that Chief Richard Currie is not a Don, is not a gangster, and is an elected official voted by his people to carry out the duties and responsibilities of this nation.
Tensions have been escalating in the indigenous community following the attack and wounding of a man in the area. It's being alleged that the man was wounded by members of Chief Currie's security detail. Sections of the Maroon community are also alleging that they are being intimidated by armed men associated with the Maroon chief. Chief Currie has also denied those allegations.
They are not armed. I have not provided anyone with any weapon, right? Neither am I importing weapons into my territory, right? We do not carry illegal weapons in our territory. I totally reject any affiliations or associations with myself or anyone associated with me toting weapons and threatening Maroon people. I am here for development, I am here for change, and I will ensure that we're not derailed the way we have been for the last 285 years.
Still making the news tonight, the Center for Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse, CISOCA, is seeking the public's assistance to locate a witness who is vital to a case that is currently before the court. She is 45-year-old Yvonne Williams, whose last known address is Dumphries, Kingston. Williams is scheduled to appear before the Supreme Court tomorrow. Williams or anyone knowing her whereabouts is being asked to contact CISOCA at 876-926-4079, Police Emergency 119, or the nearest police station. Continuing with the news tonight, the case involving murder-accused Andre Ruddock was brought forward to the Home Circuit Court this morning, where an order was made for him to undergo a forensic psychiatric evaluation. Ruddock, who was charged with the murder of 39-year-old Tanika Gardner, committed during the October 17 alleged sacrificial ritual at the Pathways International Kingdom Restoration Ministries in St. James, appeared in court last week, where an order was made for him to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Now, this morning, the prosecution requested that a more detailed forensic psychiatric evaluation be done. Justice Vinette Graham Allen granted the request and ordered that a report be submitted to the court by December 3. Ruddock was further remanded and is to return to court on December 7. Continuing with Mellow TV News, Business Process Outsourcing BPO President Mrs. Gloria Henry says the BPO sector continues to thrive even amidst the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Here is Colleen May with more on this story.
The Business Process Outsourcing BPO President Mrs. Gloria Henry has reported that the sector is expected to thrive greatly over the next 7 years, even in the midst of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
Robust growth within the global business process market is expected within the next 7 years. The entity predicts that BPO is set to register a compound annual growth rate of 8.5% from 2021 to 2028 to reach $439.89 billion. The BPO market is expected to benefit from the increasing focus of organizations on finding ways to improve business agility, survive the ever-changing business dynamics, and generally explore ways of meeting the bottom line targets. In Jamaica, we continue to serve several end-use industries, including banking, telecommunications, healthcare, e-commerce, among others. It is for this reason that we have continued to thrive since the onset of the pandemic. We are well over 45,000 employees and tracking towards 50,000 by March 2021, with 3 companies recording over 5,000 employees each, 2 with over 4,000, and many are racing towards 2,000 and 3,000. I am pleased to report that we are making important progress in global business services, supporting higher value services in HR, shared services, finance and accounting, risk management, and marketing. Our IT outsourcing segment has also been doing well, experiencing significant buoyancy and important recognition from buyers overseas. We've had 10 new sites opened during the pandemic.
She also outlined the fundamental factors that contributed to the growth of the sector during the current pandemic.
Fundamental to our growth has been the government support and designation of the sector as essential services, thus allowing us to work even during restrictions under the Disaster Risk Management Act. Outside of this supporting infrastructure, policy, and digital transformation that has enabled our success during the pandemic, work at home is at the heart of why we have survived and thrived during the pandemic. It has enabled quick and efficient business continuity, pivoting from a physical business continuity strategy to a distributed workforce, which Flow has enabled, thus helping to maintain stability and keep persons safe. Our sector was first out of the blocks with self-assessment and workplace measures, and yes, this was extended to both members and non-members, but mostly adopted by members. We implemented self-reporting regimes, physical space adjustments, sanitization measures, transportation regimens, and a host of other things, and they all paid off.
Mrs. Henry said the sector is calling on the government to make the work-at-home policy permanent and for the Ministry of Health to lift the strict restriction of daily test reporting by BPOs.
We want the best for Jamaica. Importantly, we are positioned for exponential growth, but we cannot afford to be complacent, and it is why we are urging the government to consider our proposal to continue work at home. This sector is very customer-centric, meaning that the needs of the customers are the forces behind decisions. Many things have changed since the pandemic that has changed workplaces upside down, and remote work is becoming part of the future. Companies are building it into their long-term strategies. We have put forward a proposal that shows how we can put in quantitative and qualitative measures to protect the revenues in Jamaica. But we cannot afford to be uncompetitive when work at home is being implemented permanently in other jurisdictions in the world. So we must consider that as part of the strategies, as part of the value proposition for Jamaica. On-site COVID-19 infection was minimized to less than 1% of the overall workforce. It is for that reason why we are calling on the Ministry of Health and Wellness to not continue to hold us to these strict daily reporting. I don't think there's any other sector that is now doing daily reporting. We have shown that we are resilient, that workplace health and safety is critical. We have gone ahead and got a disaster risk management framework developed. We hired Environmental Health Solutions to help us with that.
Reporting from Mellow TV News, I'm Kelleen May.
Thank you, Kelleen, for that report. The Ministry of Health will soon take legal action against persons who abandon their relatives in hospitals. Now, this move comes as the ministry seeks to address the issue of people classified as social cases occupying bed spaces in hospitals across the island. Now, some social cases have remained in hospital for as long as 7 years after being discharged. 5% of the hospital beds island-wide are reportedly occupied by social cases, while 174 persons in hospital are currently classified as social cases. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton says this is negatively impacting the delivery of healthcare in the country, and come January next year, the government will take action.
174 social cases are currently in the hospitals, and we remain resolute in our efforts to remove these social cases from hospitals and have begun the process, Madam Speaker, very important, and I've said this before, but we are well down the wicket now, of pursuing or exploring our legal options and where possible taking legal action against families who have abandoned their relatives in hospitals and are utilizing the resources of these persons that could be channeled in their care and protection, Madam Speaker.
The minister says in some instances, relatives abandon sick or infirmed family members in hospitals over the holiday period so they can attend events and festivities. Dr. Tufton says too many Jamaicans are using hospitals as infirmaries and elder care centers. He says some people have also abandoned their relatives in the healthcare system while profiting from their assets and properties.
We know of cases of persons who are receiving pension from overseas, but relatives have refused to use these funds to support their relatives in hospital or indeed in other care. We know of instances where persons have been abandoned in hospital and relatives have rented their properties and refused to use these resources to care for the owners of the property and basically abandon them in our hospital system.
The minister says the lawsuits against the relatives will assist in providing clarity on the issue of social cases so appropriate changes can be made to law and policy if necessary. He says the current situation is not sustainable.
It is unfair for persons who need a hospital bed and cannot get one because it is occupied for multiple years by persons who would have been released but have nowhere to go. I believe that the state has to maintain compassion for those persons because they are victims, but we should not confuse the compassion we show to those persons by extending it to the family members who exploit those persons' situations.
We go now to tonight's COVID-19 update. There were 108 new cases and 4 additional COVID-19 related deaths recorded in Jamaica, increasing the total of confirmed cases to 89,926 and total fatalities from the virus now to 2,302. The deceased are a 65-year-old woman from St. James, 2 males from Kingston and St. Andrew aged 57 and 66 years, and a 45-year-old woman from St. Catherine. Meanwhile, of the new cases, 65 are women and 43 are men, ranging in age from 38 days to 97 years. In tonight's COVID-19 parish breakdown, Kingston and St. Andrew recorded 37 cases, St. Catherine recorded 35 cases, St. Thomas 10, St. Elizabeth 8, Manchester, Trelawney and Hanover recorded 3 cases each. Clarendon, St. James, St. Mary and Westmoreland recorded 2 cases each. St. Anne recorded 1 case, while Portland has no cases recorded for the stipulated period. In the meantime, there were 258 additional recoveries, increasing the total of recovered persons now to 59,936. Still making the news tonight, Clinical Coordinator for the Western Regional Health Authority, WRHA, Dr. Delroy Frey, is warning the general public not to become complacent with the drastic reduction in active COVID-19 cases, as there's still an imminent projection for the country to experience a 4th wave. Dr. Frey, who was addressing The Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in association with Sarah's Children Foundation Frontline Workers Awards, launched at the MBCCI's office in Freeport, St. James, says the 3 parishes which fall under the WRHA currently have a combined 60 active cases, a far cry from what it was 3 months ago.
About 2-3 months ago, we were really overwhelmed with cases. I remember on some occasion we were running 120 active cases in one single hospital. I can tell you today, when I checked the stats this morning, at Cornwall Regional we had 20 active cases. At Savlamar Hospital we had 12 active cases. At Nowell Holmes Hospital we had 10 active cases. And at Falmouth Hospital we had 8 active cases. Please do not get complacent. I'm sure if you are following what is happening in the world, it is predicted that there's going to be a 4th wave.
Despite the 4th wave projection, Dr. Frey is of the view that this can be prevented.
We cannot change epidemiology, but we can change lifestyle. We are not going to let down our guards. We're going to follow the protocols to even more than we were following before to minimize any sort of cross-infection. And it is absolutely important that we go out and get the vaccine. Everyone who is fully vaccinated is protected from the adverse effect of any strain of COVID-19 up until now. If you see what is happening in the world now, the 4th wave, are people who are unvaccinated.
Continuing with the news tonight, National Commercial Bank, NCB, has extended the suspension of its vaccine or test policy to next week Friday, following a conciliatory meeting with its staff association and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security on Monday. Now, the parties are expected to meet within 2 weeks to work out a solution to the company's new mandatory policy, which has been met with resistance by some staff members. NCB required that staff either take the COVID-19 vaccine or submit weekly negative polymerase chain reaction PCR tests at their expense to the management of their unit. The bank said that in the event that an employee is unable to produce a current result, that employee will be unable to attend work. The company had stated that the policy applied to both face-to-face and remote employees. NCB first communicated the policy to staff in a circular on October 12. Employees were required to share their vaccination cards with department heads by October 31 as proof that they were either partially or fully vaccinated. The bank first suspended the policy a week ago. Continuing with the news tonight, the St. James Municipal Corporation has reaffirmed its commitment to tighten the measures on vendors who sell outside the designated areas in downtown Montego Bay. Addressing a meeting held at the offices of the St. James Municipal Corporation in Montego Bay this week, Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Leroy Williams, said there will be a crackdown on street vendors who continue to operate outside of the designated vending areas in the city. Mayor Williams said that he is advising registered vendors that they are only allowed to ply their wares at Lower Market Street, Church Lane, Lower Lawrence Lane, Lower Union Street, Lower Corner Lane, Orange Street, and a section of St. Claver Avenue. He pointed out that migrant vendors are primarily responsible for the congestion on the streets of the city. He called on vendors and other stakeholders to play their part if they are to have public order in the city. And that's our news package for you tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Mellow TV Evening News at 8. I am Shelly Ann Hill. Do stay safe and pleasant viewing.